Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Daft on Draft podcast. And this is an episode of Daft or Draft where we get to go over some hot takes that we have stewed up here. Put them in the mixer, baked them up, figured out what we were going to talk about today. And we have some strong ones today, and we have some strong opinions on these ones today. Are they going to be super controversial? It's probably going to be more lukewarm takes, honestly, for these three. But what I will say is I think that they are important enough topics to really discuss. The last one might be a little bit of a hot take for some people, but I think if you really sat down and watched this person's film, you might come away thinking the same way that we do. The other two are pretty interesting overall when it comes to the college football playoff. Some NFL talk even in this podcast as well, but I can't do it alone. I have my podcast partner, Cory Kinnan, here with me today with the Daft on Draft swag, the hat. I do not have the hat yet. I need to figure out how I can get some of that from Cory to see how he got that. We will talk about that all there. Cory, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I work from home today. It's always an exhilarating day when I work from home. I always feel not as exhausted, not as burned out because I have the TV on watching Netflix while I'm working most of the day. Or I can take an hour lunch and watch some film or something. So I'm feeling good. I'm ready to talk ball. So I've watched a couple of like under the radar players the last couple of days, and it's always really like sometimes it gets really monotonous. Like, oh, this guy's 18th on the board. I'm like 18 players down. I need to watch this guy. When you can turn on a tape of a guy that like nobody's really talking about much, and you're like, wait, this kid's good. And I've had a couple of those the past 2 days, so like I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling in a groove.
Yeah, I have. I've not gotten to a bunch of new tape over the past couple of days. I've kind of finished up some evaluations, and then today was my son's first birthday, so we went down to the Baltimore Aquarium and smashed some Cheesecake Factory afterwards. Got some chicken pot pie when we got home. It was a big food day for my boy. But we are going to get into this now. Do you want to start us off with the first after draft, Cory?
Yeah, let's start with the college football playoffs. So we went over the betting odds of these playoff games, and some of them are pretty wild. Where to the extent where Indiana is the lowest point underdog, so the most likely by the betting margins to have an upset in the first round. That includes over Ohio State. Indiana, Notre Dame is sitting at -7 in Notre Dame's favor right now. Ohio State, Tennessee sitting at -7.5 in favor of Ohio State. So the first after draft is that it's ridiculous that Ohio State, Tennessee has that big of a spread, or honestly that the margin for error in the Notre Dame Indiana game is as slim as it is. Dalton.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going to draft this 100 times out of 100. And I think when we really get down to it, I think that the Tennessee, Ohio State, I would take Tennessee to cover that and feel pretty good about it. And just like that, on the opposite end of the spectrum here with Indiana and Notre Dame, I expect Notre Dame's defense specifically to be able to absolutely smother Indiana and their high-powered passing attack. And I know when I look at the totals for this game, what really makes this interesting is the total for the Tennessee-Ohio State game is the lowest as well. So we have a 7.5-point spread, which is higher than the Notre Dame-Indiana game, but a lower total. So you are looking at Ohio State winning this game by their metrics here, like 26 to 20, or not even 27 to 20, 27.5 to 20, which I don't see that, man. I know that the Ohio State defense is pretty good, and Tennessee's defense is very good as well. But when I'm looking at these games, I think that Notre Dame feels to me like a much more complete football team than Indiana, where I see Tennessee being a much more competitive game for Ohio State.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because we saw what happened with Indiana when they went up against Ohio State. The one time this season they went up against a team that just had better horses than them. You can argue Michigan had better horses than them, but I also just think that coaching matters in a situation like that. When we're talking about like Ohio State or Notre Dame, like Notre Dame is an incredibly physical defense, and where Ohio State kind of beat the crap out of Indiana was in the trenches. And Notre Dame has a very formidable defensive line. And then again, on the back end as well, you talk about all the time, just how their coverages just beat down on you, how they just want to beat down on you on the back end. And Indiana just quite frankly doesn't have a playmaking wide receiver. I think they're all pretty solid, sturdy college receivers who get a lot of benefit of the doubt by being schemed up and schemed open. And then the Surratt kid can make some one-on-one contested situation catches as well. But and I don't want to sell him short. I don't want to sell that short. That's very important. And he has had a good season doing stuff like that as well. But I don't see how any Indiana receiver is going to get open in this game. And I don't see how that Indiana offensive line is going to be able to protect Curtis Rourke. Where that Ohio State game, he had a really good schemed up drive. The opening script in that game was really awesome. Rourke was able to just get it out, get the ball out. But then once they started playing from behind, the wheels fell off really fast. And I just think that's going to happen in this game. Can Notre Dame score points? Yeah, if they just run the football with Jeremiah Love. And I think that's all they're really going to have to do is just hand the ball off to Jeremiah Love as well in this game. So I think this is going to be a 2-score game. I think it could be a wider margin than a two-score game as well, compared to the Ohio State game, where nothing about that program's status coming off of that Michigan game screams this team is going to be ready to fight back. And I hope I'm wrong, because again, the college football is fun when Ohio State's fun. Because Ohio State is one of those villain schools that people love to hate, right? Because their fan base is spread out all across the nation. Ohio State fans are everywhere. Ohio State fans are annoying as hell. I live in Columbus, and it's a cult in Columbus. Honestly, obviously, my wife is an Ohio State alumni as well. She's like the least. She doesn't care about football though, so she doesn't.
Yeah, if you don't care
the
about
least Ohio State alumni that has ever existed. And she just went there for a year for her grad school program too. But so I think college football is better when that villain is good, and honestly, Ohio State's kind of felt like a Scooby-Doo villain over the past few years, where it's you just got to time up and pull the mask off. And they'll say, well, we would have gotten away from it if it wasn't for those mentally kids. I don't, coming off that Michigan loss, coming off that post-game meltdown where their senior leadership just completely melted down and threw a tantrum, to be quite honest, we'll see how they bounce back from that, because that's, and Will Howard, and specifically Will Howard, who had protected the football really well all season and just did what he needed to do, distributing the ball to high level. Michigan might have created a blueprint for other defenses as well of this is how you throw this dude off. So I'm not optimistic about that game in general for Ohio State to come away with a win, let alone a 7-point spread, 7.5-point spread.
And then they'll probably come out and win by 3 scores. And then that's just kind of the way that this all goes. But also, Indiana, you were talking about the horses for Michigan. They only beat Michigan by 5. Yeah. So, and then got manhandled by Ohio State. So Notre Dame just has the horses. And they have the quarterback to really put pressure on Indiana's defense with his legs and his ability to take care of the football overall.
So for the second Dafter draft, then, we're going to follow up with a little bit of news that has just broken today. Michael Penix is starting for the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins has been benched, not even a full season into his 3-year deal, which says a lot about, the future. He has a no trade clause as well, so he can likely pick what destination he goes to, and the Falcons try to trade him this offseason as well, which scares me as a Cleveland Browns fan and a head coach who used to be his offensive coordinator. But our Dafter draft for Michael Penix here is Dafter draft. Michael Penix is set up to be the best rookie quarterback over the last 3 weeks of this NFL season.
Oh, okay. So this is tough, because I think when you look at just pure talent, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, all superior talents. Bo Nix has had a fantastic rookie year. Sean Payton has been phenomenal. But when you look at everyone's schedule and you look specifically at the Falcons' schedule, a Falcons team that, again, is pushing for a playoff run, they have the Giants, the Commanders, and the Panthers. And those are three not very good defenses. So when I look at this, I look at that offensive line. I look at the weapons that Atlanta has. And you look at the experience level. And this is something that I think has become so clear at this point when it comes to college quarterbacks making the leap to the NFL and having to play quickly. Michael Penix has played a ton of football in his college career. I remember when I was in high school watching him play at Indiana as a freshman. And obviously that's a little bit of hyperbole, but that was a long time ago. He is, 25 years old?
Yeah.
He is not a young man, and you need him to come in and be good right away to have a chance at a playoff run, because when you look at the standings, they are not leading that division in the NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have the Cowboys, Panthers, and Saints to end the season. The Falcons need to win every single one of their final 3 games to have a chance to make the playoffs. And even then might not be able to, because when you look at the rest of the NFC, when you look at that conference,
those wild cards are already spoken for.
Yeah, I mean, unless Washington really falls apart, they are spoken for, because Green Bay already has 10 wins. Minnesota has 12 wins. Detroit has 12 wins. Philadelphia has 12 wins. And then the Rams are 8-6, locking up that division. So you're looking at 3 NFC North teams making the playoffs for sure. And then you're looking at Washington or even Seattle at 8-6, likely with a chance to make the playoffs. So Atlanta needs to win the NFC South to get that 3 or 4 seed, and they need to win every single one of their games. It's a ton of pressure to put on Michael Penix, who was just coming off of a college football playoff run. He had a ton of talent, a ton of juice in that offense at Washington, and he will be going up against one of his receivers in McMillan, playing for Tampa Bay in the same division. They won't play each other, but I do believe Michael Penix Jr. is set up in an environment, in a situation, because of his experience, because of the talent on that offense, to have the best 3-game stretch to end the season and get the Falcons fan base's hopes up for the future.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you. I mean, this is a lot of pressure right off the bat for a rookie to come in and have to win out. Like, that's the expectation that needs to happen in Atlanta, with Raheem Morris, with Zach Robinson as his play caller. But again, it's pretty favorable. I mean, you're going to get, is Tim Boyle going to start for the Giants? Like, is Tommy DeVito going to be healthy enough to play, or is Tim Boyle starting that game? Like, that should be a walk in the park.
It doesn't matter.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who, if Tommy Cutlitz or Tim Boyle are starting that football game. The Giants are horrific.
So we talked about the Commanders with 9 wins already. If the Commanders lose a second game and one of those 2 games being that head-to-head, that's huge. They would need the Commanders to win to lose 2 though of their final 3 for that head-to-head to matter. But I mean, they've got the Eagles this week.
Yeah,
they could very easily lose that game. That head-to-head, that's a huge matchup between Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix right there. That's a lot of fun. That's actually, that might be NFL game. We were just talking off air. We don't watch a lot of NFL football because watching a lot of college football is already a lot of time consuming stuff, and then covering the Browns is enough NFL for me usually on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
But that's a game it's a primetime game too, Sunday Night Football. So I'm gonna tune into that one. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
And don't look now, but that Dallas Cowboys defense is playing better. So that Week 18 game is not going to be a walk in the park for the Washington Commanders either, even though the Cowboys offense is pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, the NFC West second place team isn't going to make the playoffs. I don't see a pathway for any team other than the division winner to make it in the NFC West. So that head-to-head against the Commanders is going to be huge. So I think we're either talking about Jaden Daniels having that or Michael Penix, and it's going to come down who wins that game. But I mean, that at the end of the day, the Commanders' defense isn't good, which the Falcons have been lacking pass rush and back end help as well. So I mean, outside of the safeties, they've got their corner room is a little rough. So we could see that. We could see these guys throwing the football around the field in that game too. But I am going to draft that Michael Penix is set up for the best success because Drake May's got to play the Bills twice, and then he's got to play the Chargers and Jesse Minter. So that's not a whole lot of fun. The Bears, they don't have any offensive structure to put any faith behind at this point in Caleb Williams. And just to be fair, Caleb Williams isn't playing very well either within that structure. But I would say it's probably a 50-50 split of whose fault that is in that situation. So it's definitely not Caleb Williams. Bo Nix also has he's got to go against Steve Spagnuolo again, and he's also got to go against Jesse Minter down the stretch here too. So just talking about, and he's coming off a 3 interception performance as well. So just talking about defensive coordinators who have the ability to present eye candy to rookie quarterbacks and then flip the script on the back end is, I have more faith that Penix or Daniels versus the defenses they'll be playing will have better success. But I will draft it that Penix has a better situation these last 3 games than Daniels.
I agree. Now, you want to get to our last after draft here?
I do. I'm excited about this one. After draft. Missouri offensive tackle. We'll call him offensive lineman. Some people think he's a guard. Missouri offensive lineman Armand Membou deserves to be one of the first 5 offensive linemen drafted. Not deserves, will be one of the first 5 offensive linemen drafted in the 2025 NFL draft.
See, you flipped it from deserves to will, and now I am hurting. But because he was on Feldman's freak list, because I think he will test incredibly well.
That's where I was going to go with this argument as well, yeah.
I am going to draft this because I already have him as the 29th ranked player on my board. And actually, he's technically the 28th ranked player on my board because I have Travis Hunter as a wide receiver and a corner on my board separately. So he is the 28th player on my board. He is OT5 for me. So, or I apologize. He is actually OT4 for me. So he is OT4 for me. And I do not have any centers or guards graded above him on my board. Now, I do have Tyler Booker literally right below him. I have Jonas Savaiinai 2 places down. I have Wyatt Millam like 6 places down, and Marcus Bowe is my 36th ranked player. So those guys are all very close on my grading scale. I think if you have a team that needs a center, we've talked about this a ton, Marcus Bowe, easy pick in my opinion for that. As the first pivot off of the board, especially now that Parker Brailsford is going back to school and there is a huge lack at that position in this draft class. So I believe Membou has a really good shot, but there are some dark horses. Josh Simmons, how are they going to feel about the injury? He was playing incredibly well. How much does the NFL like Ariante Ursary? And how much do they like the guards in this class? Jonas Savaiinai, you believe that he can play tackle. I believe that he could play tackle. I believe that they will throw him in on the interior at the NFL level. So for me, I think it's going to be close. I think he's going to be 4 or 5. But I'm going to draft this.
I'm going to draft it too. He is the 6th offensive lineman on my board. And again, I need to finish my Marcus Bowe and Wyatt Millam and Tyler Booker reports still. But I don't think Booker or Millam are going to grade higher. Booker could because he's a good athlete too. Millam's just not the type of athlete that I love on tape. But I'm going to draft it as well. because we've had the conversation over and over and over again about how all of these are tackles. All these tackles are guards. And he's one who is a tackle or can stay at tackle or should stay at tackle. And I think that's going to matter.
I'm just going to point this out. Jackson Carman started at tackle this week in the NFL. So
yeah, that's
as
where
much as we want to put all these guys in guard,
needed.
Tackles are needed at the NFL level.
Yeah, the Browns have been trotting out Jermaine Ifedi at left tackle the past 6 weeks. So hasn't been pretty there either. So, and so for me, he is my OT4. I have Josh Simmons, Cameron Williams, Jonas Savai'i, than him. That's also to say that I have Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks graded as guards. Josh Simmons has injury questions. Cameron Williams has him, and it's his first year starting, and his tape isn't clean. Again, his upside's the highest, but his tape is far from clean. Jonas Savai'i, kind of the same way. People could project him as a guard and kick him down the board. He also kind of has a glaring oversetting issue on tape where that's solved putting him at guard as well. I'm going to draft it. I think some team's going to fall in love with Armand Membou, and they're going to take him in the first round.
I think that they should. I don't really see any reason why you wouldn't. I think he was consistently tested this year.
His resume is spectacular.
His resume is phenomenal because nobody beat him.
No.
Nobody really bested him the way that we saw with, say, and did he have to face the best pass rusher in college football as he continued to get better and better and better, like Ursary had to do against Abdul Carter late in the season? No. But he did have to face Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart and those.
Bama's got some young guns too.
Overton. Yeah. And he also had to face
the South Carolina defensive
line. So you're looking at everybody from Kyle Kennard, who is
Landon Jackson's in there.
40 pounds. He played Landon Jackson.
R. Mason Thomas is in there. Yeah,
he dominated Landon Jackson. And so you were looking at literally every type of pass rusher on the outside that you could look at, from 235 to 280 pounds, all guys who can bend, guys who can run through your chest, and he passed every single test with flying colors. Yeah. Yes, he deserves it.
So this is where, as an evaluator, it gets sticky because, I do have some questions about his foot speed. I do think his feet are a little heavy, but at the end of the day, it's if I think his feet are heavy and he's still matching speed and bend off the edge, what does it matter if he's getting the job done? It would be an issue if I thought his feet were heavy and he was getting cooked by Nick Scorton with speed and bend. If he was getting cooked by R. Mason Thomas with speed and bend, the way R. Mason Thomas cooked Will Campbell, to be completely honest. If he was getting worked on, but he isn't. So at that point, I have to kind of take a step back and say, it does. If his feet are heavy, he's still getting tremendous set depth somehow. So that's all that really matters at the end of the day, is that he can match the speed and bend, and he's doing it. And so this is a part where I have to be I'm pretty nitpicky, where I have to take my take the needle off a little bit, take the scalpel off a little bit and be but he's still winning. But he's still winning, even if it's not the way that I think he should be winning.
Mm-hmm.
And to me,
exactly.
that's Armand Membou. And it's against, we just listed 10 dudes who are going to get drafted in the top 50. Maybe not R. Mason Thomas, but we just drafted a laundry list of guys who are going to get drafted in the top 50.
Yep. He's that dude. He is that dude. No, I don't think any offensive tackle in this class has a resume like he does this year.
No, not even close. Maybe Will Campbell. LSU's played some dudes, but so maybe Will Campbell. But
but Campbell's gotten beat. Campbell got beat by those South Carolina guys
and the Texas A&M guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it, man.
Yeah.
There's some 3 after drafts right there. It's a pretty solid episode and a good one. That was a really fun discourse on Armand Membou right there at the end.
Yeah, really good plan. I was shocked by his tape when I sat down and watched him. And I know there have been a couple of draft nicks that have been really big fans of his all year. And I know that early in the year I brought up that he played really well against Texas A&M. Actually, both of the offensive tackles at Missouri played really well against those Texas A&M guys. And I kind of kept my eye on him from there. But then once I sat down and I actually watched his tape, I was like, yeah, this guy's a dude. And then you see that he was on Feldman's freak list, and it's like, all right, NFL's going to like this kid.
Yeah.
NFL's going to like this kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So there it is. That's Daft or Draft for the week before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk through what our Christmas week content schedule will be. I know I'll be out of town, but again, I've got a little portable snowball microphone I can take with me. So if we need to do that from a place that's not my good looking background studio here that I have right now, then we can definitely get that done. But we do have 2 more episodes coming out this week. Tomorrow, we'll be back talking about prospects 11 through 15 on our big board. 11 through 15. And then on Friday, as we usually do during game week, we'll go over all of the NFL draft implications of the first round of the college football playoffs, matchups to watch, players with the most money on the line. And that's how we'll wrap up our week. But for now, I think this is a pretty full episode of Daft or Draft on the Daft on Draft podcast. See you tomorrow.